They tryna turn Trenton into Baby Flint. Been signs by depression on the billboards ever since. 100 years ago we was lynched. Now they use germ warfare to kill us. I'm convinced, got the evidence. I look around and it's evident. Then go down to City Hall and see so much negligence. Real art is intelligent. A true artist sends messages that speak to your intelligence. They fought and died so I can do my thing. Not to get drunk and high or join no gang. I will not let none of you die in vain. For my people I bang, bang, bang. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. They say post-traumatic slavery disorder's fake, but I just tell them all to wake up. Everything we went through, what a way down a rape, bro. It's in our genetic makeup. So I am my ancestors from block to block. Let's build like it's Tetris. We must unite, link up like a necklace. They fought and died and we disrespected. So I come to correct it. The legacy they left I protected. We only think about self and neglected. You're African but yet you rejected. No. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. My ancestors been through so much pain. I don't let them die in vain. I rep for you in everything I do. I rep for you in every place I go. I rep for you in everything I do. In every place I go. I do. I go.
Peace and blessings, family. This is Brother Sharif here, live and direct at New Freedom Exchange Learning Center with our good brothers Muhajiddin Muhammad and Brother John Jamison, Brother Yahya. So we are here again for our question and answer. What is Islam? Please have your questions and topics ready so we can clarify this great faith and keep learning and growing with each other. But we'll open up with our traditional prayer that is universal, we believe, and then we'll get right into it. And I'll turn it back over to the brothers and pray in a manner which you're comfortable in. In the name of God, the gracious, the merciful, we give him praise and thanks for his mercy and his goodness to the human family. If all the trees upon the earth were pens to write with, and if all the oceans were ink, and then another 7 oceans add to its supply, the writing would still not be enough to explain the glory of God, for he's the exalted, all powerful, all wise. We confide in no other in our time of need, and we praise no other in our good fortune. He is one. And even if I live to be 1,000, it would still not be enough to thank God for his many blessings and gifts. We thank God for the Metu Neter, oracles, scriptures, and writings that came on the continent of Africa thousands of years before any organized religion. We thank God for Moses in the Torah, Jesus in the Gospel, and Muhammad with the Quran. We can read everyone in words of peace. To our Christian family, praise the Lord. To our Muslim family, assalamu alaikum. To our Hebrew Israelite family, shalom. To our Black conscious family, hotep. To our Native American family, peace and blessings. And to our people in the streets, what's good to you? It all means peace.
Yes, sir. We'd like to also welcome you on New Freedom Exchange platform. Those of you who've been following us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, thank you for your support, sharing the message, and also those on Brother Sharif Hamid's page. We welcome you also to the New Freedom Exchange family. Here, Brother Dean with our dear beloved brothers as we discuss and share our insights and understanding of this universal faith, global faith, as a gift to humanity and to society. Brother John, welcome.
Yes, good evening, beloved brothers. another week to share some insight into the beautiful religion of our Islam, and we hope we're able to shed a little light and listening audience, text from your family and friend members to tune in as we try to have a good conversation this evening.
That's why I don't think that sounds coming in too good.
So for the listening audience, Brother Dean, did you have any announcements?
In relation to the center here, or I know there are some. The 27th, I'll bring up that flyer soon. The here in York, I think it's the Salem Community Association. They're having a spring cleanup on the 27th from 10 to 2 p.m. Once I get that flyer, I'll post that up. That's about it that I think of. We also have the Friday prayers, of course, tomorrow at 1 o'clock.
Yep, those prayers are for anyone that's willing to learn or wants to learn, about our faith. 1 p.m. Women, men, children are welcome. We're here for the community. And if anyone has any questions or topics that they have for us, this is the purpose of the platform that we have here. Don't be shy. And just because we disagree, that don't mean we got to move to another planet and throw each other off into the depths of the earth. We need to stop that. Just ask the question, and we'll do the best we can to answer it, even if we don't agree. It's about clarity and education.
And while we are in Women's History Month, we do recognize the universal outlook of women as being the mothers of civilization, being the first teachers of our children and of humanity as well. And we are taught many reverence the women that bore you. We're taught, paradise lies at the feet of the mother. We have so many sayings and traditions, guidance in our religion on how we should respect the role of women in their life and how they are crucial in the upliftment of society. If the women in the society are being mistreated or abused or not allowed to reach their full potential, it's going to be a hindrance to the whole society. So maybe we can probably discuss the role or the respect for women in Al-Islam today, along with other topics.
I think it's very important to touch on that, and it's a topic that never gets old or outdated. When we all first came together with this idea of the platform, I believe one of the main goals and objectives of this platform was dispel the rumors and get rid of the Hollywood ideas that the society puts out there about Islam. And one of the stereotypes and main obstacles for people coming to Islam and understanding it is this misperception of the mistreatment of the woman, almost like we promote it. Women, especially in our community, just from me speaking to them, they feel like they don't have no rights and they would be under almost like a slave or something. It's really hurtful, to hear that. Oh, I'm gonna have to do this and I can't do that. So I believe that topic is very important to know that if you are dealing with Muslims that are in their right mind, we absolutely respect and honor the woman. Paradise lies at the feet of the mother, not just your biological mother, but any woman, any race, any background, they are to be respected, protected at all times. That is a must for our people to understand that. So it's a very important topic. Women have rights, equal to men, and they're to be respected and protected.
Brother John, any insight?
Yeah, good point. Good point. That the woman with the prophet coming, he really liberated the woman and put her on equal stands with the men, and he said that women have equal rights to the men. So we should not be looking at them and putting them down or feeling that they are less than us. Because like the brothers say, they are our first teacher, and they're the ones that nurses us and get us to the point where we can really stand on our own. So a woman is held in high esteem in Islam, and we don't try to. We look at this world and see how they have made woman just as a sex object, and that is a very degrading way just to look at the woman, the females in general, and it brings all kind of problems in the society. So I encourage the brothers to when you look at women, think about your mother or your sister or your daughter, as you may try to feel about treating a female that might not be your mother or your sister or your daughter, but you should think about that when you're dealing with a female, that the same respect you would want for your mother, your sister, or your daughters, you should give that same respect to any female that you meet.
So I just came across an article to the contrary. I came across an article that highlights 10 well, he says rules in the Quran that oppress women. So we're going to dispel some of these things because this is what's out here. It's more disinformation and the wrong perception out here than the actual truth. So we as people of faith in this religion, we trust what our God of all of us shared with us, and the prophet who was the model of how to live out that guidance. We believe we could give true light to what is being misrepresented.
What's this? You said this is an article?
It's an article.
From
Yeah.
where?
I just found it one of the articles that there's probably many of them out here.
Of course.
Yeah, but this one I'll give one of the explanations that they give. They try to reference Quranic references and then put a spin on it, right? And so the one that they highlight, number 10, they say a husband has sex with his wife as a plow goes into a field. And they're presented as a way as oppressing the women, not caring about how precious she is when they're presenting that. So I'm not going to give him the credit and read his argument, but we could address that reference of how we are to enter into our women.
Brother Muhajideen, can you answer the sister's questions? Sister Stephanie, she's a wonderful sister in our community. I know her and her daughters. She asked, how does this get communicated to the younger generation, especially where there are female head of households in a society where domestic violence is so prevalent? I'm imagining she's talking about this platform and the message that we have.
The message of how we respect women, I think.
I guess the whole platform. Sister Stephanie, if you're still on, when you say how does this get communicated, are you talking about this message of the treatment of women or Islam in general? Can you clarify that for us if you're still on? I think she's talking about this particular message or in general.
Yeah, one thing comes to mind, especially in the African American community. I think one statistic I saw, or in fact, one of the brothers we have on one of our calls, he's doing research in different communities. And in DC, I think one of the latest research he came across that 9 out of 10 African American households are led by women. 9 out of 10.
I know they used to say 67%. I always say it's probably more. So I don't know about 9 out of 10, but
that's concentrated there. So probably in the whole United States, it might be around 6 or 70%. But in DC, the latest numbers in DC in particular, yeah, it's 9 out of 10.
That's alarming. That's alarming anywhere.
Yeah. And so, number one, that's not by accident, right? There are schemes in the Bible, and the Quran shares those schemes that are portrayed against the poor, portrayed against the weak, that are in society. And because we are in a free society, it's allowed to flourish. So we have to compete. So when we come with this message of Al-Islam and the proper perspective of women being our mothers, our first teachers, reverence their womb, like how you view something is how you value something is how you appreciate something. How you see something is how you value something. And so how is this to communicate to our youth? We have to model it. And if there's 9 or 8 or 7 out of 10 households with no males, where's the models coming from? So if the models are coming from TV, if the models are coming from the street corner, if that's the heavy influence on the community, then platforms and ours and others, we have and you all who witness this, you have a duty to share this message, to support it, because we're in a free society, we're in an open society. You can't force anyone willingly to do things until you get caught. But naturally, people are going to reflect or act upon what's around them. So if they have models around them that mistreat women, that we know people who haven't seen it, who don't know their father. They could be 40 years old, 50 years old, and never met their father. And one of our overall missions in America as Muslims is to create environments that we can live out these principles. When you go to different cities, you see Chinatown, you see Little Italy, you see these models of people with culture living out their principles. And we have that same right. The church, the African American church, are the forerunners in our history as a people who established towns, right? And we know the whole Jim Crow and all these things that interfere with those independent developments. But we can, again, I think that's how we communicate to the young. We have to show them models that they could live out this life, these principles.
And the sister said the treatment of women and dispelling myths. She was asking specifically about that. But to back up what you said, that's why we're using this platform. Don't get it twisted. Almighty God is behind our great way of communicating with each other. Who would have thought 10, 15 years ago that we could get on a computer and send out messages like these in the comfort of our own home, even though we're in a learning center here? But who would have thought 10, 15 years ago we could get on a computer, get on our phone, and send out messages, not in our community, not in our state, not in our country, but to the whole world? So God is behind that. So we use this platform, this technology, to get messages out to the masses. And then on a grassroots level, we show it. Just last summer here in York, with the unfortunate situation with George Floyd that happened May 26th of last year, right here in York, we had open protests like they haven't seen in decades. Hundreds of us was marching through the streets, and I'm not putting any shine on myself, but I was one of the ones responsible for making that call. What was one of the first things I said? That we were here. If we're going to move through the streets, the women and the children must be protected. The women and the children must be protected. I don't want you walking in the front of the group. I don't want you walking in the back. I don't want you in the left and the right, but just like a cocoon, you are to be protected. Now, some people took it out of its context, but I was talking about the protection of the women. So I was trying to show people without coming right out and saying that this is where my teaching, this is where my energy come from, that we put the women first. So that goes right back to what our brother said. We have to show it openly and using, technology like this, but mostly we have to live it. So I hope that answers your question, young lady.
And another thing about dispelling the myth of women, or the role of women, how we perceive women, is very detrimental, right? Not just on the surface and the social level, but even in industry. I think even today, women still only make 70% of what men make for the same job, same skills, same level of education, but they get paid less. A lot of industries are changing. A lot of corporations are trying to be more diverse. But over 1,400 years ago, in the scripture, it says men and women should get equal pay for equal work. And there are other principles in the religion, in the text of the Quran, that brings about a justice between male and female. There's the age-old, especially in this society, in this culture, about, and not to get into a theological debate, not now, I guess, but because there's no one here who want to be fair. So we don't want to. I wouldn't want to say something against your faith and you're not able to counter it. So I kind of stay away from that. But just in the public, because it's in the public, if you ask the average person whether they go to church or not, they would say Eve made Adam get out the garden, or Eve was made from the rib of Adam. These things, without the proper guidance and insight, it could lead a lot of corruption and people to go astray, and it has. So much so that we even devalue intercourse, sex, in the general public. It's so degrading. We don't have a appreciation. So when that quote that I read, that he said it's a principle in the Quran that diminishes women about a man can have sex with his wife like a plow in the field, not knowing that the Quran is connecting man's mind to creation. And just like when a seed goes into the soil, it moistures that hard seed and allow those nutrients to come out and to develop and blossom. So while on one end they're criticizing the simple act, they see sex, hardcore, plow, hardcore into the ground, not thinking with the guidance. Guidance is to elevate our thinking. So we shouldn't just literally see a plow going in the ground and then you manhandling your woman, right? But it's these principles of development for our women that's more important.
And again, we're here to dispel. Hey, did you want to add anything to that, Brother John?
No, you're okay. Go ahead.
Okay. Again, we're here to dispel myths and get rid of the Hollywood stuff. And, we're taught to speak straight words. America is the last country or the last institution to be talking about degrading women. Even their movies degrade women. I remember coming up, watching these horror movies, which all of us used to watch horror movies, and the central theme of most of these horror movies, whether it's Jason, Michael Myers, Freddy, and all that, we missed the point of degrading women. Most of the movies, you see these nuts chasing women up and down streets and choking them. Just like the sister said, that's domestic violence. So they were promoting domestic violence on the sneak tip right in front of our eyes, choking women, chasing them, they running up and down the street, screaming and hollering. You got women's shelters all throughout. What other country can you go to and see the amount of abused women's shelters that you see here in America? When you go to the East, you don't see abused women's shelters. I'm not saying women aren't being abused. No, women are being mistreated everywhere. But the amount of shelters that you see here in America, for them to be acting like they are championing for women in their movies, the music, that's one of the things that has taken the Black community backwards. With music, before it was the Queen with Public Enemy, Big Daddy Kane, talking about hip hop. It went from that within a couple of years to now she's a B, she's the H word. You know what I'm saying? And that has totally taken us backwards community-wise. Did Muslims do that? Did Muslims bring about the abused women's shelters in America? Did Muslims create these movies with women being choked? Did Muslims create these walks that they do with these music shows with everything hanging out and exposed? Did we create that? No, America created that because they show no value in the woman, and then have the nerve to try to laugh and scoff at us when we tell the women to cover themselves. And they try to make a joke out of that. So one minute you say that we are not you, but I'm talking about the Hollywood stuff. One minute they say that we're not respecting women. Then when we try to put her on the highest plane of respect, then you got a problem with that. Open your eyes to truth. This is why we are here. All praises due to God, always and forever. We are here to knock the brains out of truth. Not out of truth, but out of falsehood. That's not violence. That is literally a quote in our book. We are here to knock the brains out of falsehood and make truth shine.
Yes, and then another problem in the African American community is that a lot of the young men are incarcerated also, and a lot of time the woman has to take on the role as the head of the household, and she has to get the place for the children, and she has to get all the sign the lease and the utilities and everything in her name, because a lot of the men are incarcerated or they're underemployed, and there's a lot of programs out there that entitles a woman with subsidies to take care of the children, and that diminishes the need of a male as a breadwinner in the household. And the law really frowns upon building a family unit, because if a woman has a man, she really can't claim him in her home as a breadwinner, because she'll lose some of her benefits and things of this nature. So there's a big drive in America to break up the family unit, and then that has really hit the African American community very, very hard. And we have to really understand that a lot of our behavior is like really a spinoff from slavery. In our subconscious, we still suffer some of the indoctrinations of slavery, where the man, he was never really responsible for his family, because he was subject to be sold, or they were subject to be sold. And sometimes the men were just used to be a stud. He just went around and procreated and had sex with the female and produced children. But there was a big move, especially in the 60s, to restore the family in the African American community, and it was happening. And but I encourage the sisters and the brothers to start to look hard at trying to rebuild the family unit, because the children are affected by that, and the children love both their parents, and we should try to have a relationship with the male and the female, the father and the mother, so that these children can get a sense of family. We got a lot of work to do. And I mean to tell you, we really have a lot of work to do. And everything in the atmosphere in America is a breakup of the family. They show a lot of shows on TV where there's no male in the picture at all. It's just the woman or the female doing it all. And if you sisters will admit it, it's very difficult to sort of go it alone. And because God intended for the male and the female to come together and act as one. So we need to change our mindsets and really start thinking about how we can rebuild our families.
It's what I've been talking about it on my podcast for a long time. Come on, bro. I've been talking about it on my podcast for a long time. It's social engineering, and it's a term that a lot of us probably aren't familiar with, or we don't know exactly, how it works. But it is social engineering, and an engineer builds things, right? So this society, based off piggybacking off what our brother said, in many different ways, they socially engineer these mindsets and these environments for this destruction and this division to work, through the music, through TV. I might step on some toes with this, but we're here to tell the truth. A lot of these TV shows that's been coming out, all the TV shows that went out, like Good Times, the Jeffersons, the Cosbys. Look, it was a family structure.
Yeah.
Now all these shows in the last couple of years, like Power and Sugar and Greenleaf, it's always dysfunctional families. And that isn't by accident. I'm going to say it again. A lot of these sitcoms and these shows that many of our people and some of the teenagers are watching, it's always dysfunctional families and dysfunctional relationships that the majority of us are watching. So there's no accident in that. That is by design to promote and perpetuate dysfunctionality in the Black family, even with the music, the B's and those negative terms to divide us and to devalue the women. Many of our youth are listening to these things. And socially, we already talked about how the society is set up for a woman to be, the head of the household, which creates all kind of dysfunction in the community. I believe he's Muslim too, Freeway. He was just here a couple months ago from Philly, and he had a song called What We Do Is Wrong. And he said, when my sneak stop leaning, then my heat stop working, then my heat start working, I'ma rob me a person, catch an N-word out in the open, and I'ma get him. Did you hear what he said? He's talking about the social engineering. He said, when my sneak stop leaning, meaning I need clothes, then my heat stop working, meaning in the house, then my heat's going to start working, meaning the gun, catch an N-word out in the open, and I'm going to get him. This is social engineering at its finest. So it's all connected, and Islam is here to extinguish all of that. We just have to open up our mind and heart, get rid of the Hollywood stuff, and know the real purpose. But it's to elevate the woman and to elevate the family, if you're talking with someone with good sense. Social engineering, always remember that term. It's no conspiracy theory. I don't even use that term. Because to use the term conspiracy theory is to suggest that you don't have the facts and it's not true. That's why I never use that term. Any talks I do, it's a conspiracy theory. No, I deal with straight facts. No conspiracy theory can prove anything that we're saying. All you got to do is look around.
Yes, sir. The next misinformation, disinformation of the Quran or the Muslims, how they view the women. This person is pointing out that husbands are a degree above their wives. And he's presenting that to show that we think that husbands are more important than the women.
Mm.
But the way, the context, again, the verses that he's referencing, he's giving misinformation or disinformation about it. So I'm going to read the verse in English, and then we'll have a brief commentary on it. We see reference with God from the Shaitan, the enemy of humanity, with the name of God, the merciful benefactor, the merciful redeemer. This is verse 2, or Surah 2, verse 228. Divorced women shall wait concerning themselves for 3 monthly periods, nor is it lawful for them to hide what Allah God has created in their wombs, if they have faith in God in the last day. And their husbands have the better right to take them back in that period, if they wish for reconciliation. And women shall have rights similar to the rights against them, according to what is equitable. But men have a degree over them, and Allah is exalted in power wise. So here's an individual who's trying to extract one element of the ayat or the verse and make it as the principle, where I don't know what y'all heard, but what I just heard is show balance.
But look at this, and a lot of people, they're not really paying attention to what Allah has revealed when He says the men have a degree above the women. Now, when you talk about degrees, it's sort of like temperature. You have a stove and you set it at 350 degrees. So if man has a degree above the women, that means he's 351 degrees. You see how minute and small that is? That's what God is saying. The difference is so small that we're almost equal. And we know that man has a physical strength above the women, but
I don't know. Women are the two pieces.
Yeah, we know they coming along. They stay in these gyms. They whooping a lot of butt. But Allah put it in a simple term, saying the man has a degree above the woman. So 1 degree, you have 360 degrees. So 1 degree above the female is so minute where it doesn't even make a difference. But they take the word degree and then they blow it up as if that's a big difference between the male and the female. And really it's not. I'm telling you, Islam is a common sense religion. And if you use your common sense, you can see that Allah, God is saying there's really no big difference between the male and the female in that degrees. Most time the women make better grades in school than the brothers, you know? So talk about superiority and inferiority. The sisters have a lot going for them in that respect. So let's not get hung up and be deceived by the great deceiver, because that's what he does. He tries to blow things out of proportion and make you think one way when in reality the difference is so small. Does that make sense?
I understand it. Our brother Alonzo said, not sure if this is a dumb question, but do Muslims believe in mistreating house pets? Meaning, for example, having a dog for just protection, not just to have it as part of the family member. Want to answer that, Muhajideen, or you be the top?
So you can start out.
So anything that's in God's creation, God tells us to respect. So hear me clear on that. Anything that's in God's creation, we are supposed to respect anything that's in God's creation. However, we are very clean people. We pray 5 times a day, and we have a process of cleaning ourselves called ablution before we make prayer. So it is not recommended to have animals within the living quarters of a Muslim household because we're making prayer, we're prostrating, and sometimes dogs have accidents or animals have accidents. So it's not recommended to have dogs within your living quarters, but they can protect your house or your business or something like that. But because we take prayer so serious and we're such a cleanly people, it's not recommended to have animals, particularly dogs, within the living quarters of the house. But in no way do we disrespect any living creature that was created by God. And of course, animals, dogs are part of the creation of God. Actually, it's a saying, I believe it's a saying of the prophet, how someone locked a cat in a room for a certain amount of days, and they were cursed for that. Not forever, but they locked the cat and mistreated a cat. And then it's saying of how people had fed a dog and a cat and gave them water, and for that, the sins was wiped away from them. So we definitely respect animals, anything, creatures.
And I believe it's hygiene more than anything, because you have to really understand the importance of keeping your house clean. In a lot of countries, you go to their house and you remove your shoes. You don't wear your shoes inside your home for all the germs that you bring in the house. But quite naturally, an animal, they tread outside and they come into the home, and just the behavior of a dog or the cats and those things. There's a great deal of I guess it's more of a, like I say, more of a hygiene and cleanliness thing than anything, rather than just disrespecting the animals, and they have their place. So don't get it twisted that we don't like. We're taught not to disrespect any animal, but we feel that for hygiene purposes that dogs and other animals should be kept outdoors.
And remember, in case you don't know, it was Muslims who taught Europe the highest values of cleanliness and hygiene hundreds of years ago in Spain. They were called the Moors. The Moors migrated from North Africa into Europe, into Spain, to a decadent people who had no idea about not only education, but basic hygiene. They didn't even understand that animals should be separate from the living quarters of human beings. I ain't talking about no dogs and cats. I'm talking about full animals they had living in the house. And the Moors came there and taught them that no, this is the living quarters for human beings, and animals like cows and stuff should be outside. And this is where some sayings is that we use today, because the Moors taught the Europeans and the Spanish people, or the people in Spain, about separating animals from those in the domestic areas that we're living in. That's where the saying "it's raining like cats and dogs" come from, because they had animals on top of the roofs, and when it would rain, they was falling off of the roof. They didn't know where to go, and that's where the saying "it's raining like cats and dogs" come from. It also, when they had the animals inside the home, they were urinating and defecating in the house. They didn't know where that, what to do with that. That's where the saying, excuse my language, which is being real, I don't got a pot to piss in and a window to throw it out, because they didn't have nowhere to throw it out. They was dumping it in the house. And we taught them about irrigation, flow of air in the house. They didn't know where to put that waste. So that's where that training came from. Both of them. And that came from Muslims. You could look this up. This isn't me making it up. We taught them hygiene and the separation of animals in their domestic life for the purpose of hygiene. They was passing fleas, all kind of things, and all kind of diseases was breaking out because they were living with animals. This is nothing new. Sorry to burst your bubble.
I know we're going to be stepping on some people's toes because they love their dogs. They
Still love Rover. Just love him from a distance.
yeah, they have Rover everywhere, and I don't understand it, but I saw this one time, and it was just me. A lady was in an automobile, and she had her dog sitting on her lap, and she was eating ice cream cone. And I saw her lick the ice cream cone, and she allowed the dog to lick the ice cream cone, and it was a back and forth type thing where she licked the ice cream cone, she allowed her dog to lick the ice cream cone, and you know sometimes dogs they sniff each other's rear end.
They do more than that.
And that's their cleaning mechanism. Yes.
So they put yourself all over and going and kissing the dog in the mouth.
Yeah. So now, you know, I know she loves her dog, but I had a hard time dealing with that. Just in the fact that, you know, the animal's behavior is a lot different than the human being. And I'm quite sure she kept her little dog clean and all, but I just thought that was a little extreme. But to each his own, because we say in Islam, to you be your way, to me be mine.
My way is not going to be like that. Anyway, we get on this topic. But we kicking truth.
We're going to get some hate. We're going to get some hate letters for this, buddy.
Well, no, I think that what y'all are addressing.
You're kicking out Rover.
Yeah, well, I think the bigger element is
jumping on Lassie. You're jumping on Lassie.
What you're leading to is like the behavior, right? Because it's about control. They say pets are for their comfort.
All jokes aside.
Yeah, it's for their comfort, right? And so you have different, guide dogs, you have service pets, certain things that you use animals as a help for certain elements.
Everything has a benefit.
Right. So I think the main thing that we're discussing, and it seemed like in a joking fashion, outside of the nasty, and the hygiene is also the behavior, right? Some people take the behavior of control over an animal to people. So they treat people like they treat their pet, like their dog.
And a lot of people treat animals better than they treat human beings.
Sure.
Now, back in the day, we all had that parent or grandparent or aunt and uncle or something. You go in their house, they be like, don't you sit on that furniture? They had the plastic on it. You know what I mean? You weren't allowed to sit on it. The Rover can sit anywhere and roam anywhere in the house. We all had that family member with that furniture. You weren't allowed to sit on that furniture. But, the animal has no control over its hygiene for the most part. They can just roam the house. Cats are pretty clean. Cats are allowed in the mosque. I've seen that. Not dogs. The cats are. I've been to mosques. Matter of fact, the mosque that we went to in Baltimore. That's the first place I saw that, and I had to ask the brothers. I was like, "What about?" And then they gave me the evidence about how clean cats are.
And they were controlling a rat problem. Actually, that's what they were there for.
Oh, okay.
That was their main, because they have a big rat problem. If you see cats around a masjid or a mosque, it's generally there to keep down the rat problem that they have in there. But that's not a normal thing.
Yeah, I can't deal with either one of those. Oh, well.
But
We'll
it
have,
serves its
we'll have
purpose.
PETA looking for us next. PETA be Muslims on there talking against our animals. We're sorry, PETA. We're sorry. It's okay. We don't mean no harm.
But yeah, like guard dog, dog that assists blind and all those things. Those are exceptions to the rule.
Mm.
But you can understand what I'm saying.
Islam is flexible.
Yes. Yes.
It isn't all about what we can't do all the time. Got to get away from that. And other Muslims need to stop putting that atmosphere out there, always talking about what you can't do. What about what we can do? Man, can I breathe? So
Yeah.
ought to be ashamed of themselves.
Yeah, a lot of Muslims that guard dogs, their home, to guard and protect. So they serve their purpose.
Well, this has been a little comedy show tonight, but we're still kicking knowledge. Do y'all have any questions or topics that y'all would like to bring up?
Get away from that family and the women.
Yeah.
To the dog.
Get on
Sorry,
the
sisters.
Well, that's a misconception. I mean, we call the women a female dog, so.
See, we ain't walking around looking all mean all the time. We're laughing.
Yeah.
We're smiling. I mean, it's a joke, but we're telling the truth. And our teacher told us that a smile is charity.
Yeah.
So charity isn't always money. Smile is charity. And you put a smile on someone's face in a decent way, that's charity. So we do believe in having clean fun. We don't walk around growling and looking mean all the time. So
And even the word being a human being, in the root word of human, there's the word humor.
Mm.
So the human being is a humorous creature, and I speak to some Muslims because don't smile, don't laugh. I said, brother, what's your problem? What's your problem? But that's a form of being misunderstanding faith, where you have to be so rigid that they interpret that as being righteous.
right.
And
Running people away.
in reality, it turns people off. Who wants to be around a stiff face, no smile, no everything is like you say, lay down the hammer.
Yeah.
We talk about some of the shortcomings that Muslims have, because if you can't talk about yourself and correct yourself, how can you speak on others? And like we say in Islam, the greatest jihad is within yourself. I just read an article in our Muslim journal. We have a Muslim journal where the Muslims, being led by the Prophet, peace be upon him, they were coming from a war. They had just left battle where they lost men, they had injuries, and the Prophet said, we just left a lesser jihad going towards a greater jihad. And they asking, what could be a greater jihad than what we just left? And the Prophet said, the jihad within ourselves. And this society, quite naturally, when they say jihad, they talk about the holy war, But that's a big misinterpretation of the word jihad in general.
So shouldn't be reluctant to come around Muslims because you think we're just going to be mean and all serious about everything all the time. It's a place and a time for everything. So it's all about balance, and we're taught that. And even the Muslims who display that kind of behavior, they know better because they know we're always taught to take the middle path, not too far this way, not too far that way, but in the middle. They just choose put on that aura, but it's not bringing anyone closer to them. It's running people away. We're supposed to be the Nur. The Nur means light. We're supposed to be not the light of the world. And one time the prophet was amongst, Prophet Muhammad, he was amongst his followers one time, and they were just sitting there, and they said, "Oh, messenger, something is strange about today." And he said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You didn't teach us anything today." He said, "I didn't want to bore you." This is what Prophet Muhammad said. The man who we believe was sent to us to give us the ultimate message. The believers was with him and said, "Something ain't right today." And he said, "What's wrong?" He said, "You didn't teach us anything today." He said, "I didn't want to bore you." So right there, he's teaching balance. You don't got to be all in the books. Just giving them a little break, giving them a chance to breathe. So like the brother said, it's a very practical, logical faith that anyone who wants to go to the next level, it's very simple. We're not here to be a burden upon anything. So I don't want to bore you. So
we have a comment here. I just posted on the line. This is our international newspaper, MuslimJournal.net. You can check that out. There's a gentleman on this side. He says, "Hello, my name is John." Where'd it go? Oh, hi guys. I'm a Christian. I was hooked on watching dirty videos, and I prayed to Jesus and was freed. The demon came out of me. I experienced it. I have a friend who is Muslim. I cry for him. It's sad. My best friend is Muslim. Then he continues, I saw Jesus or an angel of God in a dream once. He visited me and before spoke to with a thunderous voice which shook my being. So I don't know what we want to do with that. Did you have a question, John, in relation to Islam? Do you ever have a question, or what is your experience with your Muslim friend? So we'll continue. I guess he'll come back. Put me in. You're welcome to come on, sister. Is this Miss Jasmine Davis? She said she want to get on. Oh, she said he's advice. Oh, we do have an option if anyone who's watching us would like to join us. You don't have to be visual. You could be audio. We could send a link and you can join us the conversation if you like.
There's supernatural hearing. You gotta believe in supernatural healing.
Oh, healing instantly.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
he said, "Do we believe in supernatural healing?"
Instantly, yeah.
Yeah, from God. Yeah, God is capable of doing anything if that's the context that you're talking about. God can do anything.
Yeah, so are you saying yes, you want to come in? Just click the link and you could join us.
I think what he's referring to, I don't want to speak for him, but we kind of touched on this before in one of our other sessions about prayer and how sometimes people misuse prayer and how sometimes people attach powers to themselves that they don't have. So we don't believe in that, my friend, if that's what you're talking about. That is strictly forbidden in Islam for people attaching powers and communication to themselves with the Most High that they don't have. That is a direct quote in the Quran. It says, "Woe to those who said they have communicated and talked to God directly when they haven't." And we see it, and it's a mockery. We see these Benny Hins with their magic jackets. Have y'all ever seen that?
What is
We
it?
need to get over that jacket.
Oh.
Benny Hinn hitting people with jackets and the Holy Ghost, and they are healed. The Benny Hinn, and I mean, it's a mockery of faith and it's a mockery of the prophets and of God. He said he has this magic jacket, and he hits people with the jacket and they're healed. Now, if you believe that, that's up to you. But I think most of us know that that's not true. Not that prayer isn't true, but that he has some kind of special powers to heal people through prayer in his magic jacket, evidenced by there are children and people suffering in hospitals, stricken with cancer. Why don't he take that magic jacket and those magic powers there without no cameras and heal them if he truly has that kind of power? So I'm not disrespecting Christianity. I'm speaking up for the one who they say they're speaking in the place of Jesus and God and freeing them of that falsehood. So I don't know if you're talking about special healing powers like that. We believe the healing comes from the Most High God. And if we benefit from it, we say all praise is due to God. That's why we say that. All praise is due to God. Not 50%, not 70%, all praise.
You're not scared. Anyway, Jesus bless you guys.
And the thing about religion that's commonly presented in the world, especially in this culture, is that extreme, right? These supernatural or unnatural happenings, where the Quran and the religion of Islam comes to bring back the respect for nature, and how God, if God created nature and God created me, these things that come from our potential is in the plan of God. And when we get off track, we have reminders, we have models before us to realign us. That's what religion should be. It should be a realignment, not a situation where a miracle is like, unnatural. What's the difference? What difference do you place on Islam and jihad? I guess Islam and jihad. Yeah, I think we talked about that before. So yeah. Okay. All right. So I guess he's okay.
See, jihad means to struggle. And sometimes you're fighting jihad and you don't even know it. You struggle with your children, trying to keep them on the right path. That's a form of jihad. You try to correct injustice. That's what the police officer and them do. They maintain the peace, and they're called the peace makers. That's a form of jihad. Jihad has many shades of meaning. So we don't just don't look at it as fighting all the time, or when you struggle with lessons trying to learn something, you're struggling trying to learn a subject. That's a form of jihad. It has many shades and shades of meaning, and most of it has nothing to do with war in general. It's everyday life. You and your wife trying to maintain the peace in the house. You all have a disagreement. That's a form of jihad. And you're trying to do what? Bring back peace. So I know what the society has said. That's what I'm saying. They've painted jihad to mean cutting somebody's head off. And that's the furthest meaning of jihad. Jihad is the struggle, and you struggle with different things every day of your life. So understand that. Like I said, a student studying, trying to get a good grade, they're struggling. And they're studying, they're working hard. That's a form of jihad. And you're looking for what? Victory.
If we get to the root of a lot of the root of who's causing the chaos and the mass confusion, we could almost answer a lot of our questions on our own. And it's not us hating anyone, we're just calling a spade a spade. We have to get to the root of who the main agitator is. And it proves that in science. They recently did a study where they put black ants and red ants in a small area, almost in a jar. You know, they didn't fight, they just kind of stared at each other. The fight didn't start until the one that put them in the jar started shaking the jar. Then the black ants looked at the red ants as the enemy, and vice versa. Then they started killing each other. But who shook the jar? But when they were put in that same environment originally, they didn't fight, even though it was a black ant and a red ant. They didn't start fighting until the jar was shaking. Then that's when the drama started. So we need to look who's agitating and creating these divisive ideas and creating these situations for us as a people and all of humanity to be against each other. Someone is shaking the jar. Because like the brother said, I don't know if it was Brother John or Brother Dean, when a baby comes out, if you was to close your eyes and you heard a baby from China or a baby from Africa cry, you would not be able to distinguish the cry. And then once they develop as babies, they're not sitting saying, I wonder if he's from over the way in Africa. And these babies are just playing with each other. This is taught, learned behavior. Who is shaking the jar? Who is agitating all of this? It's nothing but the work of Satan.
See that one about terrorism?
Yeah, like I think he's talking about some higher. So again, like Brother Sharif is saying, there are people that present these crises or these extreme measures to people where they feel as though they have to have a certain thinking to do something. And one of the strategies of the one who wants to be the shaker of the jar is he puts language in society or in people's culture that makes them go to extremes, right? So like the average Muslim, a common believer, would never go an extreme measure in the name of religion against someone else's religion, right? A lot of these issues, and there's studies, intense studies on the thinking of an extremist, right? And it's not ideological. They put the ideological wrapping around it, but it's conditional. Similar to like what you mentioned earlier about the rapper. I mean, no average black person wants to go around killing people just to be killing people. But people are they're forced and conditioned, and these are strategies of what we call Satan. He's the enemy of mankind. So he oppresses mankind so much so, and he doesn't in our religion, Satan doesn't know that he's against God. He's against human beings. He doesn't trust that what God gave in the human being is worthy of every human being. So when we say Satan, we're not talking about something that's unrealistic or something spooky, something that's not in our capacity. There's a thinking among people that feel as though the common people shouldn't be responsible for the great value that is placed in every human being. Though we have it in our Constitution, certain inalienable rights, and all men are created equal and are endowed, and that whole thing in the preambles, there are people that work against that. They don't want the common person to be responsible for themselves, for their destiny. So they create these systems of oppression. Poverty is a system of oppression by man. There's no way that we can blame poverty on God.
And look at all of a sudden seemed like
you're not bothering us, but he said, okay, I'll stop bothering you now.
No. We enjoy you. Stay with us. Keep it coming. But it seemed like all of a sudden we haven't heard anything about terrorism. Where's these people that've been blowing up and committing all these terrorist acts? It's been in the news before. Now all of a sudden we haven't heard anything about the terrorism. Where has it went? Islam been around a long time, and it wasn't any over 2,000 years. It wasn't any or 1,500 years. It wasn't any terrorism. And then we had this spring everywhere you look, terrorists, terrorists, terrorists. Now all of a sudden, I haven't heard any terrorism in the Islamic society for the longest.
I know what it is, brother. Because of COVID, they can't travel.
You know what he
Yeah, because of COVID, travel restrictions in the airport, they can't travel. When COVID is over, it's unimpossible. Look out. Oh, boy, can't do nothing but laugh at some of the, it's ridiculous. It's a good point.
But it's good. It's good. It's good. It's good to have this dialogue. It's good to have this dialogue. Because with dialogue, we come to a better understanding of each other. And believe me, we're all on the same path. We're all on the same path. And it's just like we say, Shaitan using the language to divide us. And once we understand words and and knowing that words have shades of meaning, we can come to a mutual understanding. And believe me, Shaitan is real. And like the brother says, he's not after God, because he knows he cannot deal with God. But his mission is to put man against man so that we fall out of favor with our Creator. And when we as Muslims say God or Allah, we're talking about the Creator of the heavens and the earth. So I think any people of any faith can agree with that. They believe in a Creator of the heavens and the earth. And like you say, the founding fathers put it in the Constitution about endowed by our Creator. That was to bring about unity among the people, so that we weren't talking about a lot of different gods. There's only one Creator, and we can all agree on that issue.
Any questions before we close out? It's been a very good and
An
entertaining
hour and a half gone already.
Yeah. Any questions before we close out? Don't be shy.
What do you think of Brother Sam Shimon? I have heard of him about. I've heard about him. I'm not sure who that is. Sam Shimon. I would have to look him up. Oh, there you go. Sam Shimon. He's a Christian apologist to Islam. So I guess he's one of those who left Islam and embraced the Christian faith, and then now speaking, I guess, against Islam, which he has that right to do.
Yeah,
That's his experience.
Mhm.
As long as he's a good Christian, he all right with me.
Yes, sir.
Because Christ Jesus and Prophet Muhammad were a brotherhood. So, and whatever he has is just a misunderstanding. That's all it is. But if he feels comfortable with converting to Christianity, and if he lives up to the tenets of being a good Christian, he's my brother, and I wish him well.
Not like those stories again in Hollywood where you string him up and kill him because he went against the faith. When those situations happen, in the time of the prophet, we're talking about now. After the time of the prophet, you have a whole lot of different variations of that. But during the time of the prophet, when if that was a situation, it was more of it was like political, right? So in the sense of and even this country, I took my daughter. We went down to the International Spy Museum, and they shared how you had traitors among this nation, and so it was more of a what they call it, a survival of the honor of the order. Not like you said, faith is for anyone. You could choose to accept it or reject it. So we can't kill you on faith. That's not our right. That's not our duty. It was more in relation to protection of the environment, of the community.
Yeah, treason and traitor, that carries a death penalty in this country.
Absolutely.
But that's a political thing. That's political.
Even what they call hate speech. You have the right of freedom of speech, but you can't entice people to commit violence and commit treason and stuff like that.
Not unless you're Donald Trump.
And even him, right? Slid up out of here real quick. Where's he at now?
Probably on vacation somewhere.
And freedom of speech, we misinterpret that. That doesn't mean you have the right to lie. Freedom of speech, people think that they can just say anything, and that's what they're talking about, that you have a right to speak. You have a right to speak your mind, but you don't have a right to go around lying. That's one of the 10 commandments that'll get you in trouble. And a lie can cost people lives. People don't really understand that a lie can cause a lot of damage. A lot of wars have been started over lies. I believe Emmett Till is killing. When they killed Emmett Till, poor young boy, a Caucasian woman accused him of whistling at her, and they crucified that young boy worse than Christ Jesus was crucified. And as she was going to her deathbed, I think she confessed. She confessed that she told a lie on that young boy. So let's not get freedom of speech mixed up with lying. And I can just say anything.
And when Brother John mentioned in reference to Jesus Christ being crucified, that's not our perception.
Right.
That's how it's by other faith. To the brother who mentioned about Jesus might have sent Muhammad, yada yada yada. We have an understanding from Prophet Muhammad himself, who said that in the end you'll see myself and Christ together. And there are other verses in the scripture and in his sayings where they were brothers, but they had different mothers. So we invite you and all of you, Muslims and others. Our month of fasting is approaching. But we are doing a practice that previous people who had revelation did. And we invite you to join us to read the Quran this month of Ramadan. And we would like to share, again, as a gift for you. Just like when we are offered to study the Bible, and most of our family come from Christian experience, so we've read the Bible, but we can't say it reciprocally, right? And if it's a real country of freedom of religion, you should be welcome to read the book openly and honestly.
Thank you for correcting me on that there. Christ Jesus supposedly have been crucified. As a matter of speech, we say sometimes. But the Quran adjusted that a lot different.
And maybe in future discussions we could talk about that.
Talk about that, the difference, yes.
Because that's something else that have been put out there to separate people of faith.
Yes, yes.
We don't want to see any message or anyone put in that light. They used to hang out people from trees. We don't even want to promote that, but that's the reality that we live through. Let me see if we have anybody else. Okay. There were a few more, but we don't have to necessarily go through these. But again, these misconceptions, disinformation, we feel are obligated to address it to the best of our ability and share our understanding and our perspective from those who, this is our faith. We claim everything in our faith. We don't shy away from anything in the book. If we don't understand it or the level of understanding that we have is not sufficient, we ask God to increase our knowledge and increase our faith. Again, as we share in our talks, that The Quran is the only book, or is the book that was completed all in the life of the Prophet over a period of 23 years. And we believe it's that same message that was revealed then that is with us now. That's all I got. Let me see. Okay, that's everybody on this end. So thank you, John, for tuning in with your questions. All of you who tuned in, those who are regulars who share this message. Ms. Jasmine, next time, she said next time she'll come on. You're welcome. Any of you are welcome to come on and share and dialogue. You don't have to be visual if you like to be vocal. We can get you on with the link to join in the discussion. So with that, if there's no other announcements or commentary, I received a beautiful, it's about 20 minutes. We're going to close out and I'll play it as we finish up. There was a lecture from the new U.S. Senator, the first African-American U.S. Senator of Georgia, Senator Warnock, of his opening lecture on the House floor of the Senate. I think it's very apparent of the signs of the times. We're here with our brother Sharif, who's running for the mayor of the city of York, another sign of the times. And there are different things happen all throughout the country. There's another young brother, Muslim brother out in Cleveland. He's running for mayor, a sign of the time. And so all the things that our people have been through the last 400 years and more, we're coming into a new time where we are being respected as common human beings. And it's our faith that is also guiding us to allow us to return to our excellence. And so we on these platforms, especially on these Thursday night, that's our intention to share what the benefit of this faith has been to us. And then again, it's a gift for those of you who tune in and watch. Do you have any closing remarks before we close out?
Peace and blessings.
Yes, sir. So until next time, we're going to play this clip and we'll see you next time and we'll close out with our song. Thank you again for joining us. Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
From Georgia.
Rain.
Mr. President, before I begin my formal remarks, I want to pause to condemn the hatred and violence that took 8 precious lives last night in metropolitan Atlanta. I agree with Georgians, with Americans, with people of love all across the world. This unspeakable violence visited largely upon the Asian community is one that causes all of us to recommit ourselves to the way of peace, an act of peace that prevents these kinds of tragedies from happening in the first place. We pray for these families. Mr. President, I rise here today as a proud American and as one of the newest members of the Senate in awe of the journey that has brought me to these hallowed halls. And with an abiding sense of reverence and gratitude for the faith and sacrifices of ancestors who paved the way, I am a proud son of the great state of Georgia, born and raised in Savannah, a coastal city known for its cobblestone streets and verdant town squares. Towering oak trees, centuries old and covered in gray Spanish moss, stretch from one side of the street to the other, bend and beckon the lover of history and horticulture to this city by the sea. I was educated at Morehouse College, and I still serve in the pulpit of the Ebenezer Baptist Church, both in Atlanta, the cradle of the civil rights movement. And so, like those oak trees in Savannah, my roots go down deep and they stretch wide in the soil of Waycross, Georgia, and Burke County, and Scriven County. In a word, I am Georgia, a living example and embodiment of its history and its hope, of its pain and promise, the brutality and possibility. Mr. President, at the time of my birth, Georgia's two senators were Richard B. Russell and Herman E. Talmadge, both arch segregationists and unabashed adversaries of the civil rights movement. After the Supreme Court's landmark Brown versus Board ruling outlawing school segregation, Talmadge warned that blood will run in the streets of Atlanta. Senator Talmadge's father, Eugene Talmadge, former governor of our state, had famously declared, "The South loves the Negro in his place, but his place is at the back door." When once asked how he and his supporters might keep Black people away from the polls, he picked up a scrap of paper and wrote a single word on it: pistols. Yet there is something in the American covenant, in its charter documents and its Jeffersonian ideals, that bends toward freedom. And led by a preacher and a patriot named King, Americans of all races stood up. History vindicated the movement that sought to bring us closer to our ideals, to lengthen and strengthen the cords of our democracy. And I now hold the seat, the Senate seat, where Herman E. Talmadge sat. And that's why I love America. I love America because we always have a path to make it better, to build a more perfect union. It is a place where a kid like me who grew up in public housing, first college graduate in my family, can now stand as a United States Senator. I had an older father. He was born in 1917. Serving in the Army during World War II, he was once asked to give up his seat to a young teenager while wearing his soldier's uniform. They said, making the world safe for democracy. But he was never bitter. And by the time I came along, he had already seen the arc of change in our country. And he maintained his faith in God and in his family and in the American promise, and he passed that faith on to his children. My mother grew up in Waycross, Georgia. You know where that is? It's way across Georgia. And like a lot of Black teenagers in the 1950s, she spent her summers picking somebody else's tobacco and somebody else's cotton. But because this is America, the 82-year-old hands that used to pick somebody else's cotton went to the polls in January and picked her youngest son to be a United States Senator. Ours is a land where possibility is born of democracy, a vote, a voice, a chance to help determine the direction of the country and one's own destiny within it. Possibility born of democracy. That's why this past November and January, my mom and other citizens of Georgia grabbed hold of that possibility and turned out in record numbers, 5 million in November, 4.4 million in January, far more than ever in our state's history. Turnout for a typical runoff doubled. And the people of Georgia sent their first African-American senator and first Jewish senator, my brother Jon Ossoff, to these hallowed halls. But then what happened? Some politicians did not approve of the choice made by the majority of voters in a hard-fought election in which each side got the chance to make its case to the voters. And rather than adjusting their agenda, rather than changing their message, they're busy trying to change the rules. We are witnessing right now a massive and unabashed assault on voting rights, unlike anything we've ever seen since the Jim Crow era. This is Jim Crow in new clothes. Since the January election, some 250 voter suppression bills have been introduced by state legislatures all across the country, from Georgia to Arizona, from New Hampshire to Florida, using the big lie of voter fraud as a pretext for voter suppression. The same big lie that led to a violent insurrection on this very Capitol the day after my election. Within 24 hours, we elected Georgia's first African-American Jewish senator, and hours later, the Capitol was assaulted. We see in just a few precious hours the tension very much alive in the soul of America. And the question before all of us at every moment is, what will we do to push us in the right direction? And so politicians driven by that big lie aim to severely limit and in some cases eliminate automatic and same-day voter registration, mail-in and absentee voting, and early voting and weekend voting. They want to make it easier to purge voters from the voting roll altogether. And as a voting rights activist, I've seen up close just how draconian these measures can be. I hail from a state that purged 200,000 voters from the roll one Saturday night, in the middle of the night. We know what's happening here. Some people don't want some people to vote. I was honored on a few occasions to stand with our hero and my parishioner, John Lewis. I was his pastor, but I'm clear he was my mentor. On more than one occasion, we boarded buses together after Sunday church services as part of our Souls to the Polls program, encouraging the Ebenezer Church family and communities of faith to participate in the democratic process. Now, just a few months after Congressman Lewis's death, there are those in the Georgia legislature, some who even dared to praise his name, that are now trying to get rid of Sunday Souls to the Polls, making it a crime for people who pray together to get on a bus together in order to vote together. I think that's wrong. Matter of fact, I think that a vote is a kind of prayer for the kind of world we desire for ourselves and for our children. And our prayers are stronger when we pray together. To be sure, we have seen these kinds of voter suppression tactics before. They are a part of a long and shameful history in Georgia and throughout our nation, but refusing to be denied. Georgia citizens and citizens across our country brave the heat and the cold and the rain, some standing in line for 5 hours, 6 hours, 10 hours, just to exercise their constitutional right to vote. Young people, old people, sick people, working people, already underpaid, forced to lose wages to pay a kind of poll tax while standing in line to vote. And how do some politicians respond? Well, they're trying to make it a crime to give people water and a snack as they wait in lines that are obviously being made longer by their draconian actions. Think about that. Think about that. They're the ones making the lines longer through these draconian actions. And then they want to make it a crime to bring grandma some water while she's waiting in a line that they're making longer. Make no mistake, this is democracy in reverse. Rather than voters being able to pick the politicians are trying to cherry pick their voters. I say this cannot stand. And so I rise, Mr. President, because that sacred and noble idea, one person, one vote, is being threatened right now. Politicians in my home state and all across America, in their craven lust for power, have launched a full-fledged assault on voting rights. They are focused on winning at any cost, even the cost of the democracy itself. And I submit that it is the job of each citizen to stand up for the voting rights of every citizen. And it is the job of this body to do all that it can to defend the viability of our democracy. And that's why I am a proud co-sponsor of the For the People Act, which we introduced today. The For the People Act is a major step in the march toward our democratic ideals, making it easier, not harder, for eligible Americans to vote by instituting common sense pro-democracy reforms, like establishing national automatic voter registration for every eligible citizen, and allowing all Americans to register to vote online and on election day, requiring states to offer at least 2 weeks of early voting, including weekends, in federal elections, keeping Souls to the Polls programs alive, prohibiting states from restricting a person's ability to vote absentee or by mail, and preventing states from purging the voter rolls based solely on unreliable evidence like someone's voting history, something we've seen in Georgia and other states in recent years. And it would end the dominance of big money in our politics and ensure our public servants are there serving the public. Amidst these voter suppression laws and tactics, including partisan and racial gerrymandering, and then a system awash in dark money and the dominance of corporatist interests and politicians who do their bidding, the voices of the American people have been increasingly drowned out and crowded out and squeezed out of their own democracy. We must pass For the People so that the people might have a voice. Your vote is your voice, and your voice is your human dignity. But not only that, we must pass the John Lewis Voting Rights Advancement Act. You know, voting rights used to be a bipartisan issue. The last time the voting rights bill was reauthorized was 2006. George W. Bush was president, and it passed this chamber 98-0. But then in 2013, the Supreme Court rejected the successful formula for supervision and pre-clearance contained in the 1965 Voting Rights Act. They asked Congress to fix it. That was nearly 8 years ago. And the American people are still waiting. Stripped of protections, voters in states with a long history of voter discrimination and voters in many other states have been thrown to the winds. We Americans have noisy and spirited debates about many things, and we should. That's what it means to live in a free country. But access to the ballot ought to be nonpartisan. I submit that there should be 100 votes in this chamber for policies that will make it easier for Americans to make their voices heard in our democracy. Surely, there ought to be at least 60 in this chamber who believe, as I do, that the four most powerful words uttered in a democracy are "the people have spoken." Therefore, we must ensure that all of the people can speak. But if not, we must still pass voting rights. The right to vote is preservative of all other rights. It is not just another issue alongside other issues. It is foundational. It is a reason why any of us has the privilege of standing here in the first place. It is about the covenant we have with one another as an American people, e pluribus unum, out of many one. It, above all else, must be protected. And so let's be clear. I'm not here today to spiral into the procedural argument regarding whether the filibuster in general has merits or has outlived its usefulness. I'm here to say that this issue is bigger than the filibuster. I stand before you saying that this issue, access to voting and preempting politicians' efforts to restrict voting, is so fundamental to our democracy that it is too important to be held hostage by a Senate rule, especially one historically used to restrict expansion of voting rights. It is a contradiction to say we must protect minority rights in the Senate while refusing to protect minority rights in the society. Colleagues, no Senate rule should overrule the integrity of our democracy. And we must find a way to pass voting rights whether we get rid of the filibuster or not. And so as I close, and nobody believes a preacher when he says as I close. Let me say that I, as a man of faith, I believe that democracy is the political enactment of a spiritual idea. The sacred worth of all human beings. The notion that we all have within us a spark of the divine and a right to participate in the shaping of our destiny. Reinhold Niebuhr was right. Humanity's capacity for justice makes democracy possible, but humanity's inclination to injustice makes democracy necessary. John Lewis understood that and was beaten on a bridge defending it. Amelia Boynton, like so many women not mentioned nearly enough, was gassed on that same bridge. A white woman named Viola Luiso was killed. Medgar Evers was murdered in his own driveway. Schwerner, Cheney, and Goodman, two Jews and an African-American standing up for that sacred idea of democracy, also paid the ultimate price. And we in this body would be stopped and stymied by partisan politics, short-term political gain, Senate procedure. I say let's get this done no matter what. I urge my colleagues to pass these two bills, strengthen and lengthen the cords of our democracy, secure our credibility as the premier voice for freedom-loving people and democratic movements all over the world, and win the future for all of our children. Mr. President, I yield the floor.
Charles Sharif right here with We Buy Black. Look, it looks like we don't hit 1 million followers. That's 1 million people that could take action today. What do I mean by that? There's no point of having 1 million followers if we're not going to make a commitment to make change ourselves. We have many different black-owned businesses out there that we all need to galvanize behind, get behind, to support. So what is the call to action? I'm asking everybody that follow us to find a black-owned business today to support, to get behind. If 1 million of us purchase laundry detergent from the black-owned laundry detergent company, and we all spend $15, that's $15 million this month just for black-owned for laundry detergent. And if we make a commitment to spend that every month, because we always got to wash our clothes, then that's the money that we can pour back into our community. That's how we're going to make sure that the children in our neighborhoods have a job. That's how we're going to make sure that the schools that we love and that we support are going to be financed and supported by us. And that's just for laundry detergent. What about our toothpaste? What about our deodorant that we've been pushing you all to support throughout the years? We want to get behind all of these different products in our community because that's where it's going to start. Now, I'm going to tell you something. A lot of you all seen us in Walmart. You've seen us going aisle by aisle, picking out product. Do we have trash bags? Do we have aluminum foil? Do we have toilet tissue? These products are now being produced in our community, but there's so much more work that needs to be done. Every single item that they have in Walmart, that you see on Amazon, wherever you go, we should be producing those items. We should have those items created by us so that whenever we decide that we need to go to Walmart, then we'll be able to say, you know what, no matter what it is I need, 90 to 100% of the items are going to come from our community. It's not enough for us to have a black-owned grocery store where that the owner is black, but all the product inside the store is going to a different community. We need to have the store being built by African, the light bulbs inside of the store need to be from an African-American community. We need the floors to be produced by us, the concrete to be laid by us. Every single thing should be produced by us. We are not biologically deficient. It's just that our environment has caused us to think that we are not together to separate us. So we need to pull our resources together, strengthen our families, which will ultimately strengthen our communities, which will strengthen our whole society. So that's it. Right now, black people as a community, we have the highest rates of poverty, the highest rates of joblessness, the highest rates of crime, imprisonment, on and on and on. But as businesses, black businesses, we hire our people more than anybody else. We hire more African Americans than any other entity. So the more successful our businesses are, then the more we'll hire our people. And the more of our people that are hired, then the lower our joblessness rate will be, the lower our poverty rate will be, the lower our homelessness rate will be, the lower our crime rate will be, and then ultimately the imprisonment rate. So we can fix our issues from the inside out. But it first starts with us. So the call to action today is for all the million people who follow us, because like I said, it don't matter if it's 1 million people. Hell, we could have 10 people, but if 10 people can commit to make change, then that's where it's at. But because we have a reach of 1 million people, we asking everybody to follow us, to listen to us, get behind what we're talking about, because the change in reparations is going to start with us. There's no point of having reparations coming from the government, coming from anybody, tens of trillions of dollars, if we're going to take that money and pour it right back into somebody else's community. If our dollar leaves our community in 6 hours, what the hell good would tens of trillions of dollars do? It'd be gone in 6 hours. So the joke will be played on us. But the moment that we control all of our resources, the moment that everything that we need is coming from our community, and then we receive $10 trillion, matter of fact, we may even have a discussion whether or not it's even necessary at that point, because we circulate over $1 trillion outside of our community each year. Now imagine all of that coming back to us, and that's our reparations. Our reparations is us repairing ourselves. So the call to action, our people, continue to follow us, continue to support us. We don't want just a grocery store. We want to have the grocery store, and we want to have the products that stock our shelves to be from us too. Peace.
Don't work against us becoming Muslims if that's our choice. America is land of the free and home of the brave. And damn it, I'm brave and I'm free, and you can't take it away from me. I'm going to have freedom of choice. I choose Islam, I choose Quran, I choose Muhammad, I choose this religion for myself, and as long as my children are under my supervision and not of age to make their own decision, I am choosing Islam for all of my children. As long as my wife will like me, will love me, and she doesn't have to love me, as long as she respects me. I choose Islam for my wife. And that's my responsibility. And I hope you all feel the same way. Thank God we are free at last. We are free at last. You're not free when you're just free from physical bondage. You're not free until your mind is free and your human spirit is free. Your human spirit will take you where God wants you to go. And if you got that human spirit that will follow what God wants, your mind will be blessed by God to know how to get your body there. To get your body there. We're tired of being spooks in America or anywhere else. We are no spooks. We have a human body like everybody else. Don't tell me to accept God, immigrant Muslim from Pakistan and from Egypt and other places. Don't come over here and give me a life of Muslim ritualism. I had enough ritualism. I feel the genes in of my foreparents. They are in me. And I have a distaste for too much ritualism. I want reality. I want reality, and I want a place in this world. I want to obey God, and I want to get my share of this material world. Don't give me a spirit and tell me I can't have a body. God didn't give me a spirit and tell me I can't have a body. God gave me a spirit, and he gave me a material body to house my spirit. Now give me a material environment to house my mind and my spirit that is African American. We want to see New Africa. We want to see New Africa Islamic theaters. We want to see skyscrapers go up, and we build them. We want to see shipping lines and trucking lines and transportation lines all over in our neighborhood. We want to walk outside our house, and we want to look at the products and the construction and the industry of our own people, Muslim African Americans in New Africa, on these shores. On these shores. That's our rightful inheritance as the creation of God. God has created us for this. That's our natural inheritance. And we will accept nothing less. Nothing less. They have Spanish Town. They have Chinatown. Damn it, get ready for African American Town, Muslim New Africa. And I will say it. I know you've been waiting for it. You've been waiting for me to say it. We cannot be stopped now.
They ask me about religion, why? They ask me about my race and my tribe. They ask about my complexion, why? When they ask me, this is what I say. My grandfather was a Muslim, and my daddy was a Rasta. They were searching for the truth, and the Quran gave the answer. They put their hands up to the sky, and they ask the Lord why. We not gonna worship the creation, we only pray to the Creator. Guidance is a gift that the Lord shall give to any man or woman, whether small or big. God said you must reflect, you have to use your mind. So now you know the reason why. My grandfather was a Muslim, and my daddy was a Rasta. They were searching for the truth. In the Quran they found the answer. They put their hands up to the sky, and they asked the Lord why. We not gonna worship the creation, we only pray to the Creator. The messenger of God, the best of creation. Peace and blessings be upon him and his whole nation. He came to teach the world, came to free our souls, and the charity comes from a smile. So when you see me on the road, give me a smile. I say salam alaikum to my brothers, why? Cause it's peace for you and it's peace for me. Peace from my granddaddy. My grandfather was a Muslim. My daddy was a Rasta. My daddy was a Rasta. They were searching for the truth. Yeah. In the Quran they found the answer. They put their hands up to the sky. And they asked the Lord why. We not gonna worship the creation. We only pray to the Creator. My God. looking for. They put their hands up in the sky, and they ask the Lord why. And they ask the Lord why. We gotta worship the creation. We gotta worship the creation. We only pray to the creator. We only pray to the creator. Grandfather was a Muslim, and my daddy was a Rasta.